focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
And hi, everyone. Welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so glad that you could join us today. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. This is the show for you, the family caregiver. If you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's or another related dementia, then this show is designed just for you so that you can learn from experts all about different ideas, tips, advice from experts in the field. So we interview lots of different professionals as well as family caregivers. While you're watching this show, if you have a question, if you have a comment, or you'd like to give us an idea about something that you would like to see talked about on Caregiver Solutions Info, you can drop me a line. My email address is delray@arden-courts.com. Again, delray@arden-courts.com. Let me know. We'll get it out there for you. Today we're going to have a real special program because I'm excited to have this person with us because we're going to be talking to and about family caregivers. I have a few statistics. According to the National Alzheimer's Association, these are the latest statistics, and I want to read them because they're very scary. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. More than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia. Every 66 seconds, someone in the United States develops the disease. In 2015, more than 15 million caregivers provided an estimated 18.1 billion hours of unpaid care. This quote from the Alzheimer's Association website says, Alzheimer's costs caregivers more than their time. Family caregivers spend more than $5,000 a year caring for someone with Alzheimer's. For some families, this means maybe missing a vacation, but for others, it could mean going hungry. Caregiving is tough. So if you're a caregiver, I'm sure you can identify with some of these statistics. And if you're not a caregiver and you're someone happened to be tuning in and listening, you're going to learn a lot about caregiving in the next hour. We are passionate about caregiving. We're passionate about Alzheimer's disease and educating everyone about it so we can help people. And we're promoting research so we can find a cure one day. That would be wonderful. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking to a caregiver. Family caregivers are not prepared. They don't go to school. You don't learn this in school. You don't go to college for this. It's a very important task, which obviously people are thrown into once the person realizes that they're caring for someone who is recently diagnosed with dementia, and it just gets worse as the disease progresses. It can be very overwhelming, but it's scary too. So by talking to family caregivers, we can learn through their experiences. We can take notes and take away something that may work in another caregiver's challenges. So it's all about sharing. And if you're someone that either doesn't like to go to support groups or you find that you can't get to support groups for many different reasons, then this show is really good for you. You can tune in the privacy of your own home or in your car, or you can watch it on the website, and you will learn a lot about what you would learn in a support group or going perhaps to a seminar. So this is a great resource, and if you know someone that needs this resource, I hope you'll share it with them. So joining me today will be Debbie Bornstein. She is a family caregiver caring for her mom. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with Debbie about her caregiving experiences and the journey that she has traveled with her mother, who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And you'll find it not only very interesting, not only sometimes sad, but at sometimes even a little bit humorous. So you don't want to miss that. So when we come back, we'll be talking to Debbie. Stay tuned.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare-covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, joining me today is Debbie Bornstein. She is a family caregiver for her mother who has Alzheimer's disease. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Marcia. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. And we're talking about caregiving. We're talking to you, a family caregiver. So no one knows it better than you, someone who walks in the shoes as a family caregiver. So thank you for allowing us to interview you and share your experiences with everyone out there, because that is what it's all about. So your mom, she's how old now?
My mom is now 91.
God bless her.
Going on 92.
Okay. And, we're going to talk about when you, as a family caregiver, before you actually started caregiving, mom was, from what I know about her, very vivacious, very independent, lived on her own. She was in New York with you?
Yes. Actually, Mom was a widow in her early 40s, and she raised her 3 daughters, and worked for a university in New Jersey, and worked for a few college presidents, ran director of college services and development, and she was a lovely, beautiful woman, very independent.
Very smart, too, and intelligent.
Very.
She had some high-powered positions.
Yes, and she was always referred to as Lady Mimi.
Oh, that's what she got nicknamed?
That's why she is where she is now, and we still call her Lady Mimi.
Okay, so...
And she was the best mom in the world and the best mentor you could ever have.
So fast forward All right?
Yes.
What were the first signs? What happened? What do you recall that you were hearing that made you realize something was not right anymore with Mom?
It happened very quickly because my mother was so skilled. She found ways of hiding it. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. And eventually what happened in 2009, she had locked herself out of the house several times, was calling the town locksmith to come in, who called me to say there's a problem. Your mom keeps locking herself out of the house.
So it's more than once.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was like 8 times.
Really?
8 times in like 20 days.
Oh, boy. Okay,
And she
that's
kept
obviously a red flag.
Right. Then she kept having the locks changed. And then she lost, losing car keys, but we all do that. But then my son, one of my sons, her grandson, went to go spend the weekend with her. And he called me and he said, Mom, I really think you should come up to Mimi's house. He said, she's cooking dinner and she just went to the grocery store and she had put the pre-cooked chicken that comes in the plastic container with the plastic top on top of the gas burners.
To heat it up.
To heat it up
In the plastic.
And I said, I will be there.
Oh, wow.
And immediately, in the network of friends I had, I was very much involved in some foundation work with hospitals. And the next morning had my mom assessed, and this was 2009.
Now, at that time, how far away did you live from her?
15 minutes.
Okay, so you were close.
But I also owned the house down in Florida, so I would come down here on occasions. So what happened was I brought her in. She got assessed, and the standard assessment, and I had her assessed by several doctors. Everything was set up, and my mom could not draw a clock. My mom could not read, and she was head of book club for decades. However, she could do math. She could add, subtract, divide, multiply. And the doctors sat her down and said, you can no longer live alone. You must decide what to do. However, my mother was very, very smart. And years before, this happened when she was in her 80s. So when she was in her 60s, and since my dad had passed on, my mom had already set up an elder care agreement. So she was already prepared that if anything happened, this is what she wanted.
Is that because Alzheimer's ran in your family, or
No.
she just had the foresight to do that?
She just had the foresight to do it, and very good friends of mine who were attorneys and said, you really should think about having your mom do this. So my mom had everything set up already, and she had made me the primary caregiver. That was her decision. And when the doctors told her that she could no longer be alone, she said, I will be with Debbie. And
So she accepted it pretty well.
Well, let's put it this way. She did and was well behaved for a while. But when I made the decision to move her from the Northeast down to Florida, because I had more options than I did up north.
As far as treatment?
Treatment, also facilities, if I chose to go that route, since I didn't know if I was going to have her live with me, if she wanted to live with me, because this was a very independent woman. So I brought her down to Florida, and she lived with me, and we looked around together at different facilities and eventually chose one. But she was, even though everything was arranged and set up and furniture was delivered and it looked beautiful and just like it did at home, she wasn't leaving and decided she was going to stay with me. And then eventually, in 2 months, she gave it a shot.
Okay, now you're talking about her going into a regular assisted living.
A regular
assisted living.
Regular assisted living,
So
but they knew she had dementia with the beginnings,
The beginning, early.
stages of Alzheimer's. And besides what I brought up before about, just losing the keys, locking herself out of the house, things like that, she was starting to leave Post-its around the house asking the cleaning lady or the handyman to return her Christmas placemats. And she was hiding things, losing things, and it was becoming more and more consistent.
And she was worried about these things missing, but they probably weren't really
They were not missing at all.
Okay.
They were right there. But she, in her frame of mind,
and this is when she
thought
lived alone?
She was living alone in the house that we all grew up in.
So do you think that would you call her paranoid?
Yes, and terrified. She was scared. And I think the other thing, which I found out later on, when I was back up in New Jersey, and I was going through her things, and when I got to her phone directory, I just sat there and my mouth fell open.
Why?
She had scripts written out to each of her friends, her financial broker, saying, hi, Phil, how are you? How's, Zareta? How's ba? How are the children? Excuse me. And she knew she was forgetting things.
So for every person in her address book,
for all her friends,
she knew what she was supposed to say. Well, she didn't know. That's why she wrote it down. But she wrote herself a note to remind her what to say, who the wife was, how the kid, if they had kids.
Right.
Because she was covering up or helping herself to cover up the fact that she might forget who they were, and she was afraid about that.
Oh, absolutely. And the doctors picked up on that right away. She was very, very skilled. And she knew something was wrong, but she was afraid.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happens, a lot of times, that when someone is newly diagnosed, and even before they're diagnosed, many times they know something's wrong. They know that they're losing their abilities, and it is scary, and it creates this sense of fear in them, and they do whatever they can do to mask that, because they don't want anybody to know. And so the fact that she was intelligent, here's one of the things I say to people a lot, yes, Alzheimer's comes in and it robs you of your memory, but it doesn't rob you of your intelligence. You still have your intelligence. You're still an intelligent person.
And she was highly skilled.
It takes away the memory, not the intelligence. So she, had enough wherewithal that she could figure out, I need to do this. This is what I need to do for myself, so that she wouldn't be embarrassed or let anybody know what was happening to her at the time.
Exactly. And she's a very proud woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think why she did the elder care agreement early in her age, in her 60s, was that she knew down the road that she wanted to be taken care of the way she wanted to be taken care of.
So she was going to set in writing exactly what she wanted and not leave it up to anybody else to make those decisions, because she was independent and she had her own mind about everything.
Absolutely.
And that's great. I think that's wonderful that she could do that.
No, and I learned from her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done the same thing. That, I have everything set up. But I think the other thing is she also, at the beginning, I think the beginning stages are so terrifying, because you don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this, as sweet and as lovely as she is, there was also the anger, because she was so frustrated not knowing what was going on with herself.
And was that different for her personality to be angry?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because even at 91 and where she is today, which is in the latter stages of dementia and Alzheimer's, she still says please and thank you. Not many other words come out of her mouth.
Well, that anger,
please,
I'm glad you brought that up, because that anger, when they get frustrated and they know something's wrong, and it does cause fear and it causes anger. Yeah. But when that angry person appears, and they're lashing out, where you're like, well, who is this person all of a sudden? Because mom never did this before.
Exactly.
Right? And she might even start cussing.
There are words. I was in shock. There were words that would come out of my mother's mouth that I never knew she knew. And the other
I
thing,
think she knew them. She just didn't say them.
yes, but she was always soft, sweet, and elegant and gracious. And it was like, and I remember sitting on the landing of her staircase in her entry, crying. And one of my sons looked at me and they said, "Mom, what's wrong?" I said, "Where is my mother?" I said, what happened?
What happened?
Who is this person?
Exactly.
I mean, it was so not her.
Exactly.
So she would, and in the beginning stages, you do come in and out of it.
Right.
And that to me was very, very, very hard to watch because you never knew.
Which one was going to be there?
Exactly.
Which personality? It's almost
Right.
like a personality change, and sometimes they're very cognizant and they're in the moment and they're with it, and other times, like you said, it's a different person. But I think that the anger, they get the angry because I think it's fear that comes
absolutely.
out. So they're angry, but it stems from the fact that they're fearful and they're lashing out the anger, and it really stems from fear. Because they don't know what to do with it.
No, and Marcia, you're absolutely right. Because there were times in the early stages, my mom would say to me, "What's happening to me? What's wrong with me?"
Yeah, she felt like she was going crazy.
And I never lied to her. I even sat down with her and showed her reports. She knew she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. And this is probably one of the fond memories that it's funny and cute. And instead of, there's a lot of sadness with this disease.
Yes.
And I remember one day, her reports were sitting in the files and on the sideboard. And I had said to her, "Mom, could you please go into the kitchen and get me whatever off the kitchen counter?" And she looked at me and she said, "Why should I?" And I said, "Well, would you just please help me?" Mm-hmm. And she picks up the files and said, "Why would I? I'm crazy. It says it in the files."
Oh.
And I just looked at
So
her.
do you think that was her way of getting back at you?
She was laughing. She was laughing. And I said, "Mom, you're not crazy." I said, "You have dementia. Mm-hmm. You are starting with Alzheimer's. Doesn't mean you're crazy." She goes, "According to this, it does." And that's probably, it was a few things every now and then like that. Mm-hmm. But it was really terrifying for me.
Sure.
That when she moved in with me, she would get up in the middle of the night and try to walk out of the house. The alarm would go off. Then I had to get the locks changed to key locks and take the keys out of the door. And
I bet
hide
you
them
didn't
at
get
night.
much sleep during that time she lived with you. You were probably sleeping with one eye open and
All the time.
in your ear and watching and listening. Do you remember
Right.
that?
Oh,
How difficult
absolutely.
it was?
She had her own bedroom, but it was easier for me to sleep in the same bedroom because I never knew what she was going to do next. And I was terrified for her.
And you were working then, right?
Yes.
So you had to take care of your mother, live with her, sleep with her to keep her safe.
Right.
She was up at night, which means you're up at night, and then you had to get up and go to work the next day.
Oh, it was nonstop.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I will tell you, my mother took care of her mother. So there was an example set for me. So I knew if she could do it, I could do it. But my grandmother did not have Alzheimer's. She had dementia. Mm-hmm. And she did not pass away until she was 97.
Wow.
And my mother's sister didn't pass away until 99. My mother was the first one in the family to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh, is that right? Well, you have some good genes going there for you.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Something that
do.
could be good or bad, however way you look
know.
at it.
I don't know. I just, it's funny. I have, Mom does have a private aide, and she's been with me for over 6 years now. And we have a family joke going on because she is my family. And the joke is that after Mom passes on, that she will be taking care of me next.
Okay.
And
So she's got a lot of future employment already set up.
Exactly. But I told her, I said, no. I said, I don't want to go through. I don't want to go through what my mother's going through, because it's such a sadness to see this woman going through this. She's in no pain. She's happy. She's looks beautiful. She's dressed every day. She's happy in her own little world.
Yep. And, when they get past that anger part, they do get through that. They get past that.
But it takes a while.
It takes a while, and dementia, Alzheimer's is a progressive disease. So they will get past that stage where they are scared because literally they don't remember that they're scared. They don't they don't know what's They don't know what's going on. So they mellow out a little bit.
Right.
So we're going to take our next commercial break, and when we come back, Debbie's going to share what happens after Mom moved into the regular assisted living and why she couldn't stay there anymore. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to thank our local sponsors and also our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community, for helping to make this show possible. Arden Courts is expert leader in the field when it comes to helping people with Alzheimer's and other related dementia, and hopefully you'll have one near you. If you'd like to check it out, they have a toll-free number you can call. When you call that toll-free number, you may want to ask them about how you can get a copy of the 36-Hour Day book. This is a wonderful guide for families that are caring for someone with Alzheimer's or other related dementia. It's a book that Arden Courts would like to give to you free as a family caregiver to help you learn more about the disease and how you can better care for someone at home that has Alzheimer's. If you'd like to have this book for your own library, all you have to do is call Arden Courts. Their toll-free number is 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Call them up. Tell them that you heard about this offer of getting a free book called The 36-Hour Day, and they'll be able to take your name and your address and make sure that they get one out to you right away. You'll be really glad to have this book, and if you know someone, call for them. And it may be something that they really, really would appreciate because it is very educational and very informative. So again, 888-478-2410. Call Arden Courts and learn more about the services that they provide. They have over 50 Arden Court communities throughout the United States, and they'll help you locate one that's near you to find out more about their respite programs, about their trial stays, and about educational resources that they can provide to you to help make your caregiving task a little bit easier. So we're here today with Debbie Bornstein. She is a family caregiver. Her mother Lady Mimi has Alzheimer's disease. Lady Mimi is 91, and Debbie has come to share her story. And we're talking about what happens when someone is first diagnosed. So now we're to the point, Debbie, where mom goes into an assisted living, finally, and it's a regular assisted living, and she is diagnosed with the beginning stages, mild cognitive impairment and getting into early dementia. So how long did mom live in the assisted living, and why did she have to eventually leave?
Mom was in the assisted living for 2.5 years. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful two and a half years for her. There were activities that she could do, from painting to going to the movies, going to the theater. And also it was lovely in the sense that I could have lunch, take her out to lunch, have dinner with her, whatever.
Yeah. And she got that stimulation
absolutely.
and the socialization that everybody needs.
She needed that very much.
I mean, you're a nice person, but tell me what you told me that she told you.
She was home with me, and she looked at me, and this was after she had broken her femur, and she said, "I love you, but you're boring." And she said, "I really want to be with people. Can you find me a place?"
Wow.
And that's when we moved on. However, and every now and then, I think, Marcia, as you know, I would bring mom home for a weekend and call it girls' weekend, and let's watch a movie or do whatever.
Hang out, right.
Right. Well, there are many nights, and I'm sure everyone has gone through this with any loved one who has Alzheimer's. My mother would get up in the middle of the night, and besides wanting to get out of the house, she would empty all the dresser drawers or my closet. Now, this is something I had to learn, that I could not get upset or angry with her, and I could not question her. So what I learned to do was say absolutely nothing and just prop myself in a chair or in bed and sit there for an hour and a half watching her in the middle of the night empty everything in my house.
All the drawers.
All the
and
drawers.
The closets.
And
what did she do with them?
She would just put everything all over the floor and the chairs and whatever. And then she would exhaust herself. And then she would I'd say, "Are you finished?" And she goes, "Yes, I'm tired." And then she'd go to bed.
And then you had to put it all back, and then you were exhausted and you were tired.
But I was going to wait to put it back till the morning when she was sleeping. You know, you never did it while she was watching you. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are things I had to learn that I knew I couldn't get upset because she didn't know what she was doing.
Right. They like to rummage. They like to get into things, and they like to empty drawers and rummage around. And that's why, a lot of things get lost, because they take certain things, they put at other places that you would never think about. And they like to do this. A lot of people that have dementia, if they're living, they're already to pack. They want to pack.
Oh, always.
They want to pack their suitcase. They're going to go somewhere. They're going to throw everything in a pile and a bag and a suitcase.
To this day, and this happened ever since Mom was diagnosed, it's about her shoes. She needs to have her shoes nearby. I have no idea why, but even today at 91, where are my shoes?
Okay, so is it a particular pair or any pair?
No, it's as long as her shoes are nearby.
As long as there's a pair of shoes.
Just in case she has to go somewhere. So I go, okay, fine, here's your shoes. But no, it was really sad. Well, actually, she was doing great at assisted living. But some things were beginning to pop up.
Okay, like what?
Well, for instance, one of the things was she's very, very healthy. However, we did go the route of doing the Namenda and some of the Alzheimer's drugs, which she no longer takes. She takes nothing but a baby aspirin. And
at 91, that's it, a baby aspirin?
Yeah, that's it.
We should all be so lucky.
I know, it's amazing. I am very full of gratitude that she is not ill or in pain. But I remember sitting in her living room in assisted living, and she had this lovely bowl on the coffee table filled with M&Ms, and I'm sitting there picking at the M&Ms, and all of a sudden I'm looking, going, and I would start moving them around, and I see all these little white and pink and yellow pills. There must have been 20 in there
Inside the M&Ms.
inside the M&M bowl, and I'm picking them all out, and I probably had about 15 to 20, and I went to the nurse's station, and I said to the nurse, I said, "Excuse me, these are in my mother's candy dish in her living room, and their mouths dropped open. My mother was so skilled and so charming, but she thought they were poisoning her. So therefore, she would, let's say, get their minds off of watching her take her medication at the nurse's station, and she would palm the pills. Go back.
And they thought that she took them.
They thought she took them.
Wow.
So that was one.
Then she'd come back and put them in the candy dish.
Put them in the candy dish.
Oh, next time,
Yes.
you're in a candy dish, you better watch
Well,
out.
well, no, I made it very clear. You have to watch her take them and swallow them.
But that's part of how
the disease.
right. It's the disease, but because she was paranoid, they were poisoning her. But she was sly or slick enough
Oh,
to
yeah.
know how to kind of get back at them, because she wasn't going to be taking anybody's stuff. And
Exactly. And then what happened was things were progressing, where she started roaming in the middle of the night
at the assisted living,
at the assisted living facility, and they were not assisted living. Independent living has absolutely no responsibility towards someone who's going to roam through the gardens or walk out the front door or walk out the side door and go into the lake or whatever, get hit by a car. And I was called in.
yes,
And
that was the trigger.
That was it. And that was so hard for me, because now I had to find some place to keep her safe.
right, and that was the ultimate goal.
That was all I needed. I needed her to be safe, because I was terrified that she would just, walk out the door.
Sure, and people do. It's happened.
It has happened
more
many
times than we
times.
want to think about. So once this happened, once the regular assisted living informed you that she could no longer live there because of her wandering, obviously her Alzheimer's had gotten worse. So that was a big red flag. And, you've been, helping her and taking her to the doctors and getting her on the right pills, doing everything you could to help
Everything.
her. But you have other family. Now, when this was happening, were other members of your family ever in denial about what was wrong with Lady Mimi? Did they accept it, or were they ever in denial and like, no, there's nothing wrong with her?
No, they weren't involved. They just chose not to. When Mom had put me in charge way back in the elder care agreement as power of attorney medically and financially, the other family members chose not to get involved.
Okay. So
And I will say, my children, I have two sons who are up north, and they work. And whenever they can, they do come down to see Lady Mimi, their grandma, and me. But it's a big loss for me, because my friends and my family are up north. And I am doing this because I know I've done the right thing. I made a promise to her, and I'm going to tell and to share this, that I truly believe that everyone who's in this position needs an advocate, somebody there to make sure things are okay for them and that they are safe, that they are seeing the right doctors. I've left no stone unturned. I even did the experimental route with those doctors from Australia, which my mother would be completely normal for 7 days. But, I mean, it was so costly that and it wasn't fair. It was for me.
yes,
I was hanging on to her.
to hope. You had hope.
Right.
You had hope she was going to get cured.
Right. And then I just said, it's going to take its course. Mm-hmm. And it's taking its course. And I will tell you, the hardest thing was looking at all these places and looking at memory care facilities.
So when you were shopping and looking, because now you were forced to make a change, how difficult was it, and what were the things that you had as far as a list of criteria that would be suitable for your mom?
I had a whole list of things, but it was mostly about I wanted something that was smaller. It had to be impeccably clean. It had to be pretty. It had to have longevity in their staff.
Very important.
I mean, that was crucial to me because I had looked at places where people had only had retention of 6 months working there, where I was looking for more of the 10 to 14 year kind of places. I wanted good medical staff. I wanted the support of very educated in the field that could be supportive not only to my mother and know the right thing to do, but to me. Because now this has become my family.
Exactly.
And
that was your support. That was your...
Absolutely.
You always have to have a support group, and that I use that term loosely because your support system can change all the time as your needs change.
Absolutely. And I'm not one for support groups. I've tried them. I tried them early on. For me, I found to me, it was depressing. But again, this is my mother. This is not my husband. I think
There's
it's
different issues.
Exactly. It's not my children. I mean, I've seen it all. But I looked very, very hard, and I was very careful about where I placed Mom. And I will say, I mean, one place I thought was absolutely wonderful, perfect, and I took her out in 3 days.
Right. So
and
you
I
really
brought
have
her
to
home.
you really have to do your homework. And
Right.
and we talk about that, in previous shows about how to choose, what to look for. We're getting into detail, about really digging in because it's such an important decision that you're making, and you just can't do it lightly because, like you say, you really have to do your homework.
Oh no, and it's also, when I didn't fully answer your question, but I look back over where Mom has been, and I mean where she is now is just wonderful, fabulous, and she's been there over 3 years, and my mother is safe. I don't worry. It is the first place my mother has ever been where I can sleep at night and not worry.
And where is that place, Debbie?
Believe it or not, it's Arden Courts. And I'm not selling Arden Courts, but
We didn't pay you to say that.
No, I'm telling you, I have never. I mean, recently, back in February, Mom had a TIA, and it was late at night. They called me immediately, the nurse, and of course, my immediate reaction, she does not want to be hospitalized. Okay, we've gone through broken femurs. We've gone through other TIAs where she's been in the hospital, and it just, she comes out worse than better.
It happens.
So I said, there I am, 11 o'clock at night, saying, well, that's fine. I'm bringing her home. And it's dead silence. And then, of course, the doctor is on the phone with me. The nurse is on the phone with me. And I'm saying, no, I'm going to bring her home. I'm going to take care of her. She's not going to the hospital. That's the end. And they said, no. Instead, we're bringing hospice in.
Because they were taking care of you, too.
Exactly.
Because,
They said, you can't keep this up. And I mean, there are days that I come out of there, and her, I see her every day, but I'll come out laughing some days. Other days, I come out crying my eyes out. And it's just this roller coaster that you have to watch, live through, go through.
Yeah, watch someone through the process, and as things, get worse, and she has good days, and then, not so good days, but, giving you peace of mind you know,
I know she's in good hands.
right.
I know nothing's going to happen to her. I know she's not going to get hurt. She's not going to get abused. I know if she was taking medications, they would be given to her.
And make sure she wasn't putting them in the candy dish.
Exactly. But even, there was one place I put Mom in, and they gave her medication that was not approved by me. And it caused a stroke.
Yeah. You'd be
So
so
these are
careful.
the
So
things why-
that's part of your homework is, checking those credentials
right.
and seeing who's in charge and seeing what their protocols are and how they do everything. It's very important. Well, I'm glad she's at Arden Courts too, because I get to see her and I enjoy her very much. There's before we go to our last commercial break, there's a story that you told. Lady Mimi was sitting on the porch, and the inside, and everybody comes along and everybody says hello to her and she talks to everybody and she's as sweet as she can be. And you told the story about she thinks that she owns the place.
Oh yes. Mom, I don't know how this happened. Maybe I did it, but she loves it there. And she says, "Isn't this just a beautiful place?" And everything is so pretty with the picket fences and the flower boxes.
Like home.
Yes, it is very much like home. Her room is decorated beautifully. And she's sitting there, and somehow she has convinced herself, or I maybe convinced her, she owned Arden Courts. And she was the manager.
And we all worked for her.
And everybody worked for her. And she was, I guess, she didn't get she wasn't grasping that she was renting places out to everyone. But she owned it.
She owned it. Well,
She
you know
owned
what? We'll let her think that because
right.
you know what? We really do work for her because it's her house and we work for her to make her feel comfortable, to give her what she needs and to make her happy. And she wants to think she signs my paycheck.
That's right.
That's fine with me.
And and she does.
I just have to ask her for a raise next time.
Absolutely. And she would say, "Of course,
Of
dear."
course. Okay.
Of course,
That's
dear.
great. So we're going to take our last commercial break and we'll be back more talking about how a daughter deals with mom going through Alzheimer's. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, and we're back. We're talking to Debbie. Her mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease about 8 years ago, Debbie.
That's correct.
And mom is called Lady Mimi. And Lady Mimi is 91 years old now, and Debbie is caring for her through being a family caregiver, although Lady Mimi lives in a dementia assisted living, and Debbie shared it was at Arden Courts, and thank you for that, because we're very pleased that she's with us, and I'm glad that you are also pleased. However, I want to change the focus a little bit now, because we described what you were able to advocate and do for your mom. All right, so I want to change the focus now that you got mom set and she's fine and she's being well taken care of, and you're dealing well with that, having peace of mind about mom and her situation. But let's talk about caregivers and how this disease affects caregivers. So I have a couple statistics I'd like to read. Approximately 2/3 of caregivers are women, and 34% are age 65 or older. Almost 60% of Alzheimer and dementia caregivers rate the emotional stress of caregiving as high or very high. About 40% of caregivers suffer from depression. 1 in 5 caregivers cut back on their own doctor visits because of their care responsibilities. And 74% of caregivers report that they are concerned about maintaining their own health since becoming a caregiver. Now, Debbie, you're a very active woman. You had some high-powered jobs yourself. You're retired now as far as for working. But with your permission, I share that you worked for Bank of America. You were a senior vice president. You were the director of global cash management, reported directly to the president.
Yes.
You managed New York, Asia, Europe, Latin America when it came to this global cash management responsibility. You did strategic planning, statistical analysis, product development, financial control of product revenue, and it goes on and on and on. All right? That sounds like a pretty stressful job to me. So.
Yes, it was.
It was. I'm sure it was.
But I also did beyond that. I mean, I was raising 2 children.
And now
I
taking care of mom.
My grandmother was first, who lived with mom. And demographically, we were 15 minutes away. But I was commuting to New York.
So you had a lot on your plate. So you're dealing with all of this, and then you find out mom also gets diagnosed. She gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and you're doing all the things that you explained. But can you
also giving back to the world, which I always taught. My mother taught me that, and I taught my children that.
Right.
That I was always part of their foundations, boards, anything to help.
And I know that
and make the world a better place.
That's wonderful. And I know that although you're retired from your job at the bank with all those responsibilities, you are very involved in the community, and you're leading boards and treasurer and really giving back and helping a lot of people. But how do you relate to these statistics about caregivers? Do you think those, from your perspective, do you agree with those?
I do. I have never been so tired in my whole life. To me, I will say I've learned, and it really is because of where mom is now, that I have learned to take care of myself, that I do make sure that I go to the doctors, because I'm afraid if I'm not here, what's going to happen to her? Who's going to take care of her?
That's right.
And I'm terrified over that.
That's right.
So I do make it a point to get my blood work done, and I should be exercising more, but I really don't have time right now. But I would say the stress level is very, very high. Depression, to me, it's more sadness, because you can have great days with her, and it might not be her. It could be just the environment, on a cloudy day, to be with a group of Alzheimer's patients. Everybody seems to be sundowning all day long. So I would call it more sadness. But I can see how people would be depressed. I mean,
you can be so sad. It can can dive into depression.
I will tell you, when mom broke her femur, I just wanted to put the pillow over my head, turn over and go back to sleep. but I knew I couldn't.
Right, because you
I
were mom's
knew
advocate, and
I
she
had to
depended
get
on
up.
you all this time.
right.
So, what are some of your most important tips that you would like to share as a family caregiver, as a daughter caring for a parent? Take care of yourself.
Definitely take care of yourself. Make sure you have your physicals done and your blood work done, but take some time for yourself. I don't do enough of that, I will admit. I mean, I really have to do more of that because I seem to just try to keep busy.
That must be your
Yes.
personality,
Yes,
right?
it's my personality because I just want to stay positive about it. So if I don't sit around and think about mom having Alzheimer's and looking at this, I mean, some days she's wonderful, but some days, I can get in, she's now in a hospital bed, and I'll just get into bed with her and just hold her in my arms because she's like a baby now. And, that's, so I try to keep busy, to do things.
And it seems like, you are such a devoted daughter, and you're
Yes.
right, you do come all the time, and you're there for her, whatever she needs. And I know that you relish in the good moments that you get, and you look for the humor when there is humor, and to appreciate that part of her because she can still make you laugh.
Oh, yes, even when she gets angry. And it's like, I just look at her and I go, like, who are you? And now I've learned to laugh. And it's like she doesn't realize what she's doing. But in a few minutes, it will pass.
Right.
And I can see how it's
better. It's better.
It's better.
Well, I want to thank you, Debbie, for coming and sharing
Thank
with
you.
us today. I hope you all enjoyed Debbie sharing her journey with her mom through Alzheimer's disease. And I want to encourage you to call in for your free 36-hour day book to Arden Courts. And I also want you to stay tuned and make sure that you join us next week. Tell someone about us. We'll be back same day, same time. And in the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it and so do you. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed on